From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, joined as ever by Tom Campbell, our Chief Creative Officer.
Hello, all.
And James St. James, legendary showbiz personality of the screen and stage.
Wow!
You know what? It's our last live show of this year. Well,
and
topical show, you know.
And I'm barely alive, so thank God.
All right. Well, we're doing what we normally do, counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go,
wow!
Number 10, Tom.
Number 10.
I watched on Netflix Leave the World Behind, the feel-bad post-apocalyptic movie of the Christmas season.
Are there any feel-good post-apocalyptic Christmas movies?
No. With Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, Mahershala Ali, who I love, and Mahala Harold. The setup, I can tell you, which is this one couple. You know, Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts they live in Brooklyn, and they look like they live well, but their bed is against a wall and it's painted, but there's a crack in the plaster like there are in some old buildings, just to let you know that they're wealthy, but they're not that wealthy. But they're wealthy and they're white and they're beautiful. And she's packing for her. She's like, "Hey, hon, what's up?" She goes, "I just decided we need to get away. We need to spend more time together. So while you were sleeping, I got us an Airbnb in the Hamptons, not too close to the water, but close to the water. And it's a hamlet, and we're going to go there, and I'm packing, and let's go." And he goes, "Babe, what made you think this way?" And she looks out the window, and she's Julia Roberts. She's beautiful. She goes, "You know, I just looked out the window and saw everybody getting ready for work and feeling fulfilled and tackling the world." And then the camera closes in on Julia Roberts. She goes, "And then I realized I hate people." So that's how it starts.
Well, she came to the right place today. Here on the Wow Report, where we hate everyone.
Weird crap keeps happening. They get there. The place is beyond beautiful. You know, it's this huge. And why do they get there? And then they go to the beach, and strange things start happening, akin to planes falling out of the sky, oil tankers coming ashore, and they're like, "This is weird." And they kind of go back to their paradise, which is all metaphorical, I'm sure. And then in the middle of the night, knock, 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 knock. And it's supposedly the owners of the house, in a tuxedo black man and his daughter. And they said, "Oh, we had to leave the city, and could we come stay here?" And they together, this unlikely, and Julia and Ethan's children, teenage children, they all spend this time together as the world starts to fall apart. But they are taking it all with expensive whiskey, expensive red wine, the gaps for conversation and sort of, you know, low parlor kind of movies where it's like, oh, this couple breaks up and they talk in this room and this couple talks in this. It's kind of like that, but it's like the world's ending. It's just so sanitized, I guess. It's provocative and interesting. It's slow. Fenton, you're halfway through.
Yeah, I'm halfway through, and it's definitely an exercise in building tension. And yes. I'm sort of waiting for it all to come together.
Because you guys are building a lot of tension here, and I'm waiting for a payoff.
What's the big reveal?
The big reveal is it's more about our behavior in such circumstances that it could happen. Spoiler alert, in the first scene, one of the early scenes where the family is driving to the Hamptons, they're all on separate screens. What's going on? Respect,
it's a bit like the last year's apocalyptic Christmas movie from Netflix, which, you know, Don't Look Up. It's a little bit, and it's a little bit signposty, like we're bad people, we're living unbalanced lives, and nature's gonna run amok, and the surveillance, the panoptic surveillance world in which we live in is not good, right? It's Judge Judy time.
We rely on the internet, we rely on news, and when that's taken away from us, who do we become? But it reminds me of, I never saw it, but Fenton, you explained the Rock movie about the earthquake years ago, or maybe it was James, it was on the show, and how everyone had died except for this one family, but you saw no carnage, you saw no bloody people, you saw no, so it's like there's one scene, I'm going to spoil it because it's been talked about because it involves Teslas, but they decide we're leaving. The Julia Roberts, we're leaving, get in the car, which doesn't make any sense because, by the way, there's an electrical outage. There's no way to get gas. Like, can you you know what LA's like? Can you imagine? I know it, and they keep, it must be awful in the city. It'd be awful in the Hamptons too. Do you know what I'm saying? It would just be so they try to get onto they're driving on empty roads. No one to be seen. No one. They're the only people. And they say, well, if we get to the freeway or the interstate and there aren't people, I'm going to be concerned. It's like, bitch, you should already be concerned. There's nobody on the road. And they get to this on-ramp and it's clogged with crashed white Teslas. And they don't know what's going on. And so Julia gets out of the truck and the husband stays in the thing. And she realizes, oh my God, they're all floor models. They're all brand new. And then she realizes they're being programmed by whoever, we don't never find out, to crash into each other. And she looks back, and this is the most action-filled sequence, is why I'm spoiling it. And she's like, get out of the car. And so she gets in the car and she has to get out of there before all the other white Teslas that have been programmed come and crash in the next car. So she's like going against traffic. That part I related to that. That felt like my morning.
I love the white Tesla thing. When cars run amok. And of course, it's like contrasted with the natural world because animals starting to act very strangely, right?
Yes.
Migration patterns are disrupted and what have you.
But it doesn't stop them from like stopping and listening to some vinyl, dancing, drinking. I mean, it's very weird. All of a sudden, they'll stop and talk. It's like no one got into survivalist mode. And there's Kevin Bacon. Sorry, he's in it. And he plays a survivalist. And they go to see him. And he's kind of like, what are you guys doing here? Which my Uncle Bob was like growing up. Because he had a bomb shelter. Because, it's the same thing every generation. He had a bomb shelter. And one Easter, Uncle Bob, who loved us, was a loving man, he had a bomb shelter for his wife and my cousin Candy and April. And we said, Uncle Bob, what would you do if we showed up at your bomb shelter? He goes, I'd take out my gun and I'd shoot you. But the sheer, to me, it's like it was a tiny little dent because the pandemonium that would happen if that happened in LA. I have earthquake supplies. If the earthquake lasts, I'm going to be eaten for my water and my batteries. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so
buy your cats.
Well, they'll fight back. But this whole, so it's provocative. It's interesting. I say watch it, but it kind of doesn't, which I don't mind. It has a really controversial ending, which I think is cool. And I don't mind that it doesn't commit to a total, it doesn't point to it points to a lot of different places that it could be, but because they're isolated, they never really know what's causing this.
Oh, very intriguing. Leave the World Behind, streaming on Netflix, a moral fable, I guess, about our dependence on technology, ironic coming from the leading technology media company.
Amen.
Number 9, James.
Number 9.
Number 9, I watched Radical Wolfe, the Tom Wolfe documentary on Netflix that came out. And Tom Wolfe, of course, was one of the most famous journalists of the 60s and 70s, part of that nouveau journalism scene with Joan Didion and George Plimpton and Hunter S. Thompson. And he was very famous for his style of writing, which, a car wasn't a car. It was a tangerine baby dream maker, vroom, vroom, where you want to go kind of deal, everything. And he just really it was overly verbose and in a way that it seems sort of corny now to look back on it, but at the time it was very radical. He wrote a very famous book called Radical Chic, in which was a dinner party. He RSVP'd when Leonard Bernstein hosted a party for the Black Panthers, and it was all these Uptown Society women mixing with the Black Panthers, and he skewered all of them. And then in the 80s, he wrote The Right Stuff, of course, which was huge, huge, huge. And then he turned from journalism to novel writing and wrote Bonfire of the Vanities.
The novel.
That was a great novel. Even though he who never reads read that one. That was amazing.
Not a great film, but a great novel.
Yeah, a horrible, horrible movie book adaptation. But he skewered uptown socialites. He skewered Wall Street. He skewered black politicians. He sort of had his finger on the pulse of what was happening in New York at the time. And then he kind of became a victim of his own fame in a way that so many of those Truman Capote types, in which he had this persona that he was a dandy and he always wore these white suits with high collars. And he was just very easy to caricature. And by the end of his career, he wasn't really the writer that he was before. He did this book, I Am Charlotte something or other, Man in Full, in which he was trying to do college kids and how they talked and their vernacular. And he was like a 70-something-year-old man trying to talk in hipsterisms of the 2010s. And it didn't quite work. And he, like I said, he became a victim of his own fame, I think is what happened. And he passed away in 2018, I think. But it's an interesting documentary because I don't know that I ever really bought into the Tom Wolfe mythology, but I get it. I understand it.
It happened. I was alive for some of it.
He was also part of that peak period of journalism when Esquire was it, right? He wrote these amazingly long articles for Esquire, one of which was that kind of drag racer thing, tangerine colored dream.
He did that thing that George Plimpton and Joan Didion did so well, where he immersed himself in the hippie culture and the drug culture of the 60s, and was a part and was viewed it, but he was a part of it. You know, he was a part of his own story, like Hunter S. Thompson, in a way that was fascinating. And I don't know. Have you either of you watched it? Will you watch it?
I will watch it, but I haven't. I interviewed him once when we did a Esquire, 80 years of Esquire magazine.
All right.
And I can't remember anything about it. I remember the house in the Hamptons, which was gorgeous. And he was wearing the white suit with the high collar. And he was just very nice and charming, but I can't remember a single thing about the
Well, I think you nailed it right there. Is that he was very erudite and well spoken and had things to say, but in the end, what does it really matter? Because you don't remember anything except for the names of his book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test and
Bonfires of Andes was an excellent moment. I mean, time passes, everything changes. I was distracted as you were talking about
the dogs bark and the caravan moves on, as Truman Capote once said.
And you're sort of saying he became a caricature, and then I was worried, are we in the caricature part of our careers? And I thought maybe we've always been caricatures, and therefore we won't have to go through that period where we become caricatures. Maybe we just have always been caricatures.
It's funny because I always had a theory about people becoming caricatures, and that if you can be reduced to a doodle, if you can be reduced to a pencil doodle, like, Phyllis Diller, John Sex, Karl Lagerfeld, then that means that you have a stick-to-itiveness, a stickiness.
Yes.
That makes you iconic. And he had that thing where you could instantly reduce him to a pencil doodle and you would know who he was. And that's how and if you can become that kind of person, then your fame will live on after you.
You're almost at doodle stage, James.
I'm trying to be doodle.
And this has nothing to do the story with Tom Wolfe, the chief financial officer at World of Wonder, correct?
Or Thomas Wolfe, the famous writer in the 1920s and 30s.
Okay, just making sure.
Well, that's Radical Wolf, which is airing on Netflix documentary. Number 8.
I
had a weekend in Vegas. It's been a few years. I've sort of avoided Vegas lately, but went to see Kylie Minogue
and that's only half the story. Spoiler alert. That's only half the story. What a weekend you had. If you follow Fenton on Instagram, you know.
It was a bit of a weekend, but I'm just going to start by talking about Kylie in Vegas. You know what? The amazing thing about Kylie's show was it was at the Voltaire in the Venetian, ridiculously priced, but made sense because it's a tiny room. It's like less than 1,000 people. And she is right there. And you are literally, you reach out and touch her. And the other thing, which I guess everybody knows about Kylie, she's tiny. She's absolutely tiny. Even though she was on a runway that went right through the room, even me standing up was taller than Kylie. I was looking down, even though, but the other thing about it was that she is just so adored. I mean, I seen Kylie before at the Hollywood Bowl. All the gays in the village were there, all the love. But I guess when you put her in a smaller room, just the intensity of love for her completely transforms the room. It was like a sort of magic experience. And she did all the hits. You know, she is Madonna-like in the fact that she's had a hit every decade. Cher-like. I mean, she's only 55, but she's just had her biggest hit, of course, Padam Padam. And that's my only note about the show. She kind of did it sort of as one of, not really even the encore. And it was sort of a short, I know Padam Padam is short. It's only like 2.5 minutes long. But honey, I would begin with Padam Padam. I'd do Padam Padam in the middle. And I'd end with a Padam Padam medley. I might have just done Padam Padam the entire, because everybody went just ballistic. It was a really,
I love the idea that if after every song ended, you just heard Padam, Padam underneath, like it was always there. It was always there.
Yes, exactly. It's sort of continual Ibiza-like beat under the whole thing. That would have been amazing. Love her. I mean, it's impossible not to if you're in that room. And you know, she's got a lot of hits. And you know, she was 18 when she did with Stock Aitken Waterman Do the Locomotion. Yeah. And everybody again went just crazy. It was interesting. I had my eye on this straight couple. I thought it was straight. Anyway, a lovely wife, I'm imagining, young. And then who I thought was a very straight banker or accounting figure in chinos and a blue shirt. When Kylie came out, he went completely doolally. And I was like, oh my God, does she know her husband is totally gay? He was like completely like just dancing like a maniac, almost crying. And I was like, I was just watching the two of them thinking, how's this marriage gonna work out? You know, that was my presumptuous assumption anyway, that was what was going on.
I've always known about Kylie. I like her. I love some of her songs a lot. You can't help it because she's had so many. No one has had a career. She's people know her in America. She's not unknown, but she's not as big in America as she other places. But no one's had a career that seems as flawless in terms of like she knows who she is, she delivers who she is. She's been through some changes and shifts, but she never disappoints. There's never been like a down period or a crisis period or a what were you thinking period. She just seems to get better with age.
She is sort of one of those characters like Robbie Williams, who has this huge career everywhere in the world. She's the biggest, the biggest star of the world, but they can't really become that big in America.
Padam has tipped her over the
but did it? It came and it went so fast though.
Yeah, all us gays absolutely adore her and are bonkers for her. And she was kind of touched by how much love there was in the room. And I guess maybe it was just a privilege of being able to see her that close, because she just has this lovely impish, mischievous expression and does not look 55. Oh my God, like she is perfectly preserved and looks 20 something, and was just funny and lovely and warm and engaging. And I actually think she should do it forever, like just be in that room, because she would fill it from here to eternity. Rather than having to do bigger stadiums. The intimacy worked really great.
Awesome.
I can't recommend it enough. All right. Oh, and she was only on stage for 75 minutes. There was a little burlesque show before, which was really good. Just like 4 or 5 burlesque numbers, and then a really short set. Leave them wanting more, right?
Yeah.
We'll take a quick break. Meet the Queens of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 16, Sweet 16, on our social media accounts now. Get ready for an all-new season coming to MTV, 8 p.m., January 5th.
U.S. Drag Race, the original recipe, kids. Don't. It's an amazing season, and I know for a fact I was there.
It is thanks to you, Tom.
Partially. It takes a village, people.
Blake, do you have a question?
Who is Alan Smithy?
We'll have the answer right after the break here on the WOW Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the WOW Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Tom and Blake.
Yes, and I asked, who is Alan Smithy?
We all know, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think Alan Smithy, in this case, is Blake Jacobs. It's someone who directs a movie and then finds it so disgusting that he replaces his name with the name Alan Smithy. And I think in the credits this week, it should be Blake Jacobs / crossed out Alan Smithy. Am I right?
Well, there are way worse episodes of this show.
It's not over yet. It's not over yet.
But follow-up question, was there ever a real Alan Smithy? And if not, where did the name get plucked from?
I've got this written down. It's an official pseudonym used by film directors who wish to disown a project. It was coined in 1968 and it was used until 2000. It was the pseudonym used by members of the DGA when directors dissatisfied with the final product proved to the satisfaction of the guild panel that they had not been able to exercise creative control over a film. So I don't think they're really...
But it doesn't say where the name itself.
No, I think it's more of just like a John Doe, but not John Doe. That'd be too obvious. It's just...
All right. Well, you need to do a little bit more research there, Blake.
I know.
I didn't claim to be an expert on Alan Smithy.
Well, we rely on you quite a bit.
We are getting down to the top 10 things of the week that made us go,
wow.
And we've reached number 7.
Number 7.
I'm finding it hard. You know, I love to go to a concert. I love to see. I'm finding it's harder and harder, and I'm taking blame for this instead of blaming the world, in finding joy in things.
Oh, you're having Anhedonia.
Oh, is that it?
I think that is what it's called, Anhedonia, when you can't get pleasure from anything.
Because you'll see Maestro. We'll talk about it. There's lots to talk about. Thematically, it's interesting. I thought it was really well done and with lots of effort, and everyone's on their A game. At the end of it, I was like, not good. Then when I was in New York last week, I was, I love to see, I'm there for 3 days. I'm going to see 3 shows. I'm so proud of my, usefulness. And I got tickets, which ended up being in the second row, my mistake, to see Merrily We Roll Along, which is a Sondheim show musical that's never worked, but they finally got it to work. And so I get there. I sit down in the second row, which is too small, too close. And I'm talking to a lovely lady next to me. And right before it starts, the usher comes and says, by the way, the first act is an hour and a half. So the person behind me said, so there's no intermission. The show's an hour and a half. He goes, no. There is an intermission and it's an hour and a half from now. So you need to use the bathroom. And then I made the crucial mistake of not going to the bathroom then. So I sat. And I watched the opening number, and it's Daniel Radcliffe and I want to say Darren Criss. I'm too close. It's 70s.
Daniel Radcliffe and Darren Criss. I could watch them read the newspaper.
You should have seen. And they're all in caftans and 70s wigs and young people pretending they're in the 70s. And it reminds me of Maester a little bit because it's sort of Sondheim with a wife and this movie and the party's all for him and he's the hottest shit and he's ripping everybody apart and he's having an affair with the actress and then his friend who he wrote real books with, real art, back in New York. She's there and she's making fun of him and she's making a fool of herself and the wife is there and she can't believe it. And at the end of the opening number, he's like, don't you see I hate my life? The cleric gets close to him and like Julie Roberts, he goes, I hate people. He's like, don't you see I know this is all a joke and that it's not real art. At that point, unrelated, my stomach went and I was like, oh, I'm in the second row and I need to go to the bathroom. Because also it's not like I think like it's gonna be an hour and a half till I go to the bathroom. So a panic sets in.
Is it number 1 or number 2?
It's number 2.
Okay.
It's a
like that diarrhea on a plane story.
I told you that's my biggest fear is not the passengers, but being the one running down. So
or when you went to SpongeBob, right?
Oh yes, it wasn't SpongeBob, was it? What's that musical with the eating plants?
Oh,
Feed Me.
Little Shop of Horrors.
Thank you.
Which, by the way, being vomited on would be horrible. The other would be worse. So I am now like watching an opening number I wasn't fond of again, but I'm in this. What do I have again? What do I have? Andonium. What do I have?
Anhedonia.
Diarrhea.
So I have to get up, and I think, I've got to get up. I have to be careful. The woman's going to let me through. I was like, do I leave my jacket or do I take my jacket? And so at the last minute, I take my jacket. The woman next to me I had a really lovely talk with. She was up from Savannah, Georgia, visiting her daughter. She's like, what's going, like, she was just like concerned, like, what? And I went to the bathroom and you hear the dialogue and sort of start to flash back. I'm like, yeah, I'm not staying for another hour and a half until intermission. So I left. It was
so you just 10 minutes,
maybe 10 minutes into, and so I spent $300 to use the restroom at the theater.
I want to say it was not Darren Criss, it was Jonathan Groff.
Thank you so much.
I love Jonathan Groff. I love him too.
Jonathan Groff is amazing, and he had some like, but I was too close, and everybody, you know, how you sort of tell like their pants weren't pressed. It just felt like it was too close. It was too close. The happy ending, and I'll be quick, as I went and saw Titanic, which is the parody of Titanic, which came from like Rockwell or something here, some tiny little theater, and it's a big success. And I was wearing a mask because I went with Marina and we wore masks just for our health concern. And in the audience was Jinx and Dela, who were doing their show the next day. It's a blast. It's fun. It's corny.
Now, who is in that?
It is Drew Doge is in it.
Wait, is Drew Doge on Broadway? Is that what you're telling me?
It's off Broadway, but it's at it's in the Village at the Darren Roth Theater. But it's this little, and it speaks to what, you know, we do with our Vegas. It's not a Broadway show. It's an anti-Broadway show. It's a parody. It's like a Drag Race sketch, but it goes on and it's really well. And it's basically telling the story of the Titanic through the eyes of Celine Dion, who might have actually been there in her songs. What?
Love that.
And so the best part is every time a vignette ends, she comes back out and goes, "Thank you very much," like totally unaware that they're plotting for like who came out. So it's just stupid. And they do a whole. It climaxes with two queens stand before me prior to tonight. In order, they lip sync for their life to get a lifeboat. So you know we have rubbed off on the pop culture.
I can't sue them.
No, just for a minute, and then I was very, very flattered and very happy. So go see all those things. Don't trust me, but I feel like I've seen so much that it's hard to eke joy out of things. But we'll work on that for weeks here on the air on Radio Andy.
I love it. Number 6. Oh, well, I should say Titanic. Yes. Where is it at? What theater?
The Darren Roth Theater in the
and it's going to be there for the foreseeable future because everybody loves it. All right.
I hope it goes on forever and ever.
Yeah. Number 6, James.
Number 6.
Number 6. There was a woman in my apartment building, Lillian, who passed away this week. And she was she lived in the building. She was 90-something years old. She'd been there since the late 60s. She moved in the late 60s. She'd been a part of the building forever and ever and ever. And she was across the way from me. And it was the first building, the first window. And she was always in her window, always sitting in her window. And the window was always open. And she would talk to everybody as they walked back and forth. You couldn't leave the building or come in without passing the window and seeing Lillian. And she was always there chatting with everyone. And when I first moved in, she was very active and she would bake us all cookies and lemon bars and leave them on our doorsteps. And she was always in the pool every day and she would be swimming. And she was just somebody that you talk. I don't know her last name. I never knew her last name, I don't think. And in her later years, she had dementia a little bit. There was a woman above me who had dementia as well. And the woman above me would sometimes knock on my door and just ask very sweetly what day it was or what month it was. And then I'd sort of walk her back to her apartment. And Lillian, near the end, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show, she was in a wheelchair and she would sit buck naked in her wheelchair in her door or in the window and just chat. And you'd stop and you'd start talking, and she would just be, her boobs were in her lap. God bless her.
I love that.
Yeah, she was 90-something years old. It was hot. She didn't have air conditioning. She didn't give a fuck.
Amen.
She didn't care. And so I didn't care. And so she would just sit and talk. But it was that dementia thing where sometimes the conversations would veer off and they'd go on and on and on, and you couldn't get away. And she had a caretaker who always looked after her and who was there every day. So nobody was worried. I wasn't worried about her. But, you know, like when the electricity would go off, I'd check on her. And as I was going to the grocery store, I'd see if she needed something. But what's really sad is that she passed away. And she has a brother in Canada that nobody knows how to contact.
Oh.
There's no contact information. So he doesn't know, and there's no way the real estate people don't know. None of the neighbors know. There was no contact information. And it's just sort of that sad thing that this woman lived for 50 plus years in my building. I don't know her last name. And she's gone, and her stuff is in the trash bin outside, and nobody can contact the brother. And it's very sad that you can have this whole life. And
I think the fact that you didn't know her last name is irrelevant.
I
knew
agree.
her heart. She was Lillian, your neighbor. That's who she was.
Yeah, she was just Lillian, who
Yeah.
was always there, And to imagine being in your apartment for 50 plus years and just, being that person that everyone talked to every day.
I've crossed the 50-yard line of that, but I haven't reached 50 yet. I'm at the 50-yard line. I mean, what a beautiful tribute to her in memory of her. I'm always like, when I used to flea market a lot, because there are photos I have in my apartment. I'm a single man, I have a brother and sister, but it's like there are pictures that are just like the Mona Lisa of my family, like pictures of my brother and sister and I that I have around. And then I'm like in a parking lot in Pasadena at 7 a.m, and I'm looking through old photos. Somebody, and it's like, no, I don't want this photo. I only collect photos of Shriners and people holding fish. So it's just like, imagine that, you just flash forward to your passing and your stuff being dumped off at the flea market if you're lucky, and people going,
If you're lucky, exactly. I hope someone gets some pleasure out of my shit at the flea market as opposed to it just going in the trash. That's my fear. Just like
what I do remember, there was on General Hospital one time.
Yeah.
I know that there was a great line that Tracy Quartermain had after her father died, and the Quartermains were this great family on the soap opera, and over the years, all of the characters, all of the Quartermains have passed on, and Tracy was at the crypt looking up at her father, and she said, "Who will remember those days that we spent at the lake?" That there was nobody left around to remember those childhood memories. I get a little teary-eyed just thinking about there is that moment where you're the only one left, and it's sad.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but we have to love each other and love every moment and try to scrape off the crud of life and enjoy each other. You know what I mean? Because this is it.
Yeah.
Well, rest in perfection, Lillian.
Yes.
Neighbors.
That's beautiful.
And now back to the crud of life. Number 5.
Number 5.
So, speaking of Tom's anhedonia, I can relate to this. I'm having sustained anhedonia. I went to see U2 at the Sphere.
Was this before or after you saw Kylie?
So Kylie the night before, and the next
Okay.
night feeling
So
a
you're
little
full of
tired and
Kylie,
angry.
intimate,
When-
beautiful, magical.
Right. Beautiful, intimate experience, dancing and loving every second. U2 at the Sphere. Now, I have expectations about the Sphere because it is the world's most interesting building. In fact, but this is what I wrote on my Instagram.
Yes.
It's an incredible achievement to reduce the most extraordinary building in the world to something profoundly dull. And U2 aced it. I was shocked. I thought this would be a show to end all shows, stunning visuals, many of which I've seen on Instagram of the incredible visuals. And to be sure, those bits are in it. But most of the show, it's just black. There is nothing on the inside of the world's largest TV screen, except at times a little picture of Bono projected on the wall like it's some sort of...
So the incredible video that we see on the outside, which is mind-boggling and architecture and media to this level. Inside, it's just plaster. It's not screens.
No, inside it's screen. But when U2 take the stage, apart from a few moments, the screen is basically off. And you're just looking at those tiny, teeny fuckers on stage singing their dreary songs and listening to Bono, that pompous, self-inflated, messianic, delusional rock star bore.
Goodness, do you like Bono? I can't quite get
No, I didn't go to see Bono. I went to see the Sphere. I was so excited. It's true. I do have an inherent dislike of U2, but I was like, It's the Sphere. It's going to be just visual. It's U2. They're going to do something
How do you
amazing.
screw up the Sphere? How is it possible to screw up the Sphere? And they did it.
They did it.
Do you think it's their fault and not like, did they make bad? I'm just curious because, you know, not the same thing, but the ABBA Voyage thing they saw in London is spectacular visually. I know, you know, there's just so much happening right now visually, and they built this whole building. It's just like, do you think someone's going to come in and figure it out?
Well, there isn't a problem with the Sphere. I think it's absolutely the problem with the act. And I think perhaps maybe they thought that they didn't want to get over, you know, they've always been a band that's had problems with spectacle and always been committed to authentic rock and roll. And I bet someone was thinking, we're not going to let ourselves get overshadowed by special effects. We're going to keep the focus on us at times. And it's like, who cares about you? We're not there for you. We're there to see this amazing thing.
Someone as pompous as Bono would want to just have his whole face in a wraparound sphere going around. I mean, like, his ego is big enough to fill the sphere that you would think that they would have just used, like, it could have just been his face and he would have been happy. Why? How can you screw up the sphere?
They somehow did. And literally, Tom, like, my stomach didn't give out on me, but we were just over it. We left before the end because it was like, this is just boring. And if you're U2 and you've had all those hits, wouldn't you perform them all at the Sphere in a Vegas show? Why we want to go and hear Achtung Baby, one of their less interesting albums with only I mean, it was like, you need Madonna there. You need Beyonce there.
You need Cher there. You need Cher and Diana Ross. They will do it. They'll pull their faces up.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say about the Sphere, and this is a criticism of any, there's no cell phone service inside. So if you can't be posting while you're in, like, it just felt like weird that here we are in the world's largest TV screen, but you can't post.
Benson, I think you and Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke should get some whiskey and talk about this, about your attachment to posting while watching it.
There was a particularly awful moment where, obviously at great expense, an enormous string was lifted up, and then they projected a balloon on a bit of the roof, and Bono was holding the string, and it was like sort of sub-Banksy, pointless, minimal, cheesy, and then someone on my Instagram said, well, you know, maybe they were there to eschew artifice and show that they're the real thing. I said, well, okay, go do that, but don't do that at the Sphere.
And don't charge me $1,000 a minute either, you know?
They should have put U2 in the Venetian and Kylie at the Sphere. That's what they should have done.
Kylie should have just followed you around all weekend and performed wherever you were.
Well, I know. And then at some point, because it was really crowded on the floor, and you know, like when you're like in standing room only, that sort of thing, and people are pushing past you because they want to get to the bathrooms or the bar. This man said to me, will you please stop touching my wife? And it's like, I'm not touching your wife. I'm gay. I'm just being pushed by everyone who's pushing past me.
Would you stop touching my wife in a crowded concert?
Did you say you were gay? Did you come out to this guy?
I just said I'm gay. Why do I don't want to touch your wife?
Did you kiss him? Did you kiss him? Tell the truth.
No, I said I'm leaving. And he said, no, I don't mean for you to leave. I said, no, I'm leaving. I'm done. I'm leaving. I was just cross. So.
Well, I'm angry with him for saying that to you. How dare he?
It's touching my wife. I mean, he flattered himself. Like,
many people are confused. Gay, British, who knows?
Well, there you go. Yeah. All right. Well, Blake, have you got a question for us?
I do. You know, Sinead O'Connor's most famous song, "Nothing Compares to You," was written by Prince. Who did he write it about, though?
Alan Smithy.
We'll have the answer right after the break here on the WOW Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the WOW Report. It's Benson here with Tom and James and Blake.
Yes. Prince wrote Sinead O'Connor's "Nothing Compares to You," but who did he write it about?
Apollonia?
No. No, it wasn't sexual at all.
Jesus.
It was his housekeeper, Sandy. Yeah, she had to go home to like deal with a family matter. And she was young and like handled everything at Paisley Park. He had just started it. And she had to go home, and he was like, when's she coming back? And so he wrote the song about her. She was the one who planted all the flowers in the backyard and all the rest.
I don't believe you.
Well, I'll send you the link.
We are counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go, wow. We've reached number 4.
Number 4.
Seeing a lot of Oprah on TV these days, dressed in purple usually.
I cannot believe this. I'm already outraged. I know where you're going with this. Go.
Oh my! I don't even know where I'm going. He seems so sure. She finally revealed in People magazine after her 40-pound weight loss journey in the last week and a half. I exaggerate. That she has been using. She didn't say which brand, but I'm saying Oprah Ozempic. It's just fun to say together. That she's been using a diet aid, one of these drugs, and she finds
after denying it and being the face of Weight Watchers. That's the thing right there.
Is she still the face of Weight Watchers? Yeah.
All of these things ran through my mind because the last time I saw her with Gayle King earlier this week on CBS This Morning, and she was like, you just have to change everything. And it's like, don't just say you have to say everything, because Ava DuVernay, I don't know anything for a fact, sue me, people. Her Vanessa, everybody who looks skinnier, those housewives, everyone who's the skinniest they've ever been at 60 or 65 or 70 are on Ozempic, people, or the like. So, hi.
I don't think you want to hear my opinions on Ozempic.
You can. I am too. By the way, I am too. I am too.
I know, all three of you.
I lost 20 pounds. My problem is this is my third journey since last year because I couldn't get it. Like I was in Europe, and I had
because it was going towards the people who need it.
Well, I got mine because I was pre-diabetic, and now we get it. But hopefully there'll be enough. They'll manufacture enough because it's a great thing. But yeah, Oprah, we hired to standards, and I looked it up, and Weight Watchers actually can hook you up with Ozempic. But now there's this whole rift between like the old-fashioned count your points. So, and then Oprah had a quote, and I had it and I lost it, but just how her whole life, she thought she was lacking, that she didn't have the self-discipline, but in fact, it was something in her brain that she can actually turn off. So, it's not going away.
The fact that she lied about it makes me so furious. And the fact that she didn't own it. And then we saw her on the red carpet and she had Ozempic face. We all know what Ozempic face looks like. I can see it the minute I can see your Ozempic face. Don't tell me you're not.
You know what Ozempic face used to be called? Al Roker face. But now what? Come on, that was a joke. Remember when Al Roker lost all the weight?
Well, I'm old enough to remember Oprah wheeling out the wheel thing full of fat, the bags of fat.
And she has sort of said that in this People article that nobody has had her weight more scrutinized and exploited than hers.
Elizabeth Taylor is entering the room. Marlon Brando would like to have a word. Okay, don't give me that crap. Oprah. You are the only person who has ever been scrutinized for your weight.
And Oprah has used her openness on the topic to benefit her own platforms. So that's all. It's just Oprah is on Ozempic, people. So this if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck and swims like a duck, it's probably on Ozempic. Is all I'm saying.
And just to say that Novo Nordisk, who make Ozempic and one of the other ones, yes.
Mm-hmm.
They're based in Norway, are making so much money they're able to lower everybody's taxes in Norway, and they have lowered everybody's taxes.
That's hot.
Yeah. Well, my daughter said
if Oprah is lowering taxes in Norway, go Oprah.
Although I also saw an article, Tom, where they say that actually these things are also, they're not just reducing your appetite, they're reducing every kind of desire, and your ability to experience pleasure is
that's what you guys are all saying, that you can't find any joy in anything because of your damn Ozempic. Yes.
So you need to see Maestro, James, without your Ozempic and tell us what it's really like, what the movie's really like. You'll probably cry and have feelings. And
And
the
you'll
whole
probably
thing.
love
Julia
you too at
Roberts
the
train
Sphere.
wreck that you both keep talking about. Yeah, I'll probably it'll probably be the favorite movie I've ever seen.
So
Well,
if James thinks May December sucked off of Ozempic, then
Yeah, it must really be bad. I think we changed the name of the show from the Wow Report to Ozempic versus off Ozempic. On Ozempic versus off Ozempic. What's it's like point counterpoint. Anyway.
Or maybe we just call it the Anhedonic Top 10. The things that made us go, every week. Number 3, James.
Merchandise.
Number 3.
Number 3. Well, sort of in that same vein of things, this Christmas I am really tired of of Rudolph and Frosty and Charlie Brown Christmas
Do you
Story.
see?
I am so tired. The one that I
James must be on
the thing I was
Ozempic.
going to talk about was that damn Hershey's Kisses commercial with ding 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 ding.
Yes, I
bells.
remember you talking about that.
And how upset it made me that they've been doing it for like 39 years. They haven't changed it up. But then I learned the fact that the reason why they don't change the commercial is so that they don't spend money on the commercial so that they can give their company, their workers a bigger bonus. So that's actually a very sweet thing. That the reason why the M&M commercial stays the same is so that they can keep their. Anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. I am here for some good news. These are some good Christmas specials on Turner Classic Movies that I have watched that I think everybody needs to make their instant Christmas classics. The Man Who Came to Dinner. Tom, I know you're going to agree with me with Betty Davis, Monty Woolley. Monty Woolley is an acerbic columnist at a Vanity Fair publication. He breaks his hip and he goes to move in with this hapless family, a normal family in suburbia. Yeah. He is this curmudgeonly New Yorker, and he just takes over their lives and during Christmas time, and it's absolutely fabulous. Holiday with Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn.
Saw it for the first time like the other night.
Yeah, it takes place during the holidays, and it's just, Cary Grant and Judy, and Catherine is talking about the holidays, and it's just listening to these two great voices of Hollywood and the way that they talk everything. My favorite holiday movie is Night of the Hunter.
Just saw that. We're watching.
I just watched it too. Robert Mitchum is a serial killer preacher.
Right. Plays on children.
Yes, and he marries Shelley Winter because the children know where the money is buried, where there's money, and he stalks these children who go on the run, and he's a serial killer, and the children are rowing in their rowboat trying to get away from him, and he's chasing them.
And they hook up with Lillian Gish, who saves their life. It's all about that shot of Shelley Winters underneath
the water, and her hair is waving. Yes, she's drowned.
The other thing I'll say, I don't interrupt your flow, is that it was directed by a great actor whose name I'm forgetting. Charles Lawton, but he used and employed silent movie techniques, which is why things like the Shelley Winters underwater, like there were these epic rowboats. Yes.
But it does for Lillian Gish what Sunset Boulevard did for Gloria Swanson. It showed why she was a star in the silent movies. It shows why she was a legend and an icon, and she takes care of the kids as they're on the run from this serial killer preacher Robert Mitchum, and she's got this shotgun, and she's standing in her porch with the shotgun waiting for him to come back, and then he comes and he sings her this song, and they both sing the song together. It's this old
spiritual, like a spiritual, and he's singing it to her.
He's singing it over to him, and he sings it very.
He sings it for resilience.
Yeah, he's a serial killer, and he's standing out on by the porch singing to her, and she sings it back to him because it's a spiritual that she gets strength from, and it makes him. Oh, it's so good. And I just want to say that Steven Sabin, the great Steven Sabin, who worked at World of Wonder, loved this movie, and the little girl who knows she knows where the money is hidden inside her doll. Spoiler alert. And he at one point, all through the movie, they always say, "What's your name?" And she always says, "My name's Pearl." And Steven Saban used to just say that out of the blue. We'd be sitting there at work, and all of a sudden you just hear, "My name's Pearl." And I always think of Steven when that movie comes on because it's so funny.
And he had a little dachshund that he named Pearl.
He did have a dog.
did.
He'd say, "Her name's Pearl."
But he probably was signaling that somewhere in his apartment
He
was
probably-
millions of dollars.
He probably had millions of dollars. Yes, in his dog's bed or something.
Here's
Right.
one moment of the film I want to highlight, which is so weird. But you know how like movie violence again is so clean, and you shoot someone and they fall down. They, it's like bang, they're over, they're dead. There's Robert Mitchum's character gets shot, and you hear him go, oh, 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 like a wounded beast into the bar. It's a great moment because it speaks to the pain and the shock. Anyway, I
Didn't
love
he have
it.
like love and hate?
Yes,
on his knuckles?
he had love written on one knuckle and hate on the other, and he would
Uh-huh.
tell this story about the story.
Night of the Hunter, a perfect Christmas movie.
Or if Die Hard can be a Christmas movie, Night of the Hunter.
Okay. Number 2,
Number 2.
The Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory is the title of a book. It's basically the crack up of the American Evangelical Church. It's written by Tim Alberta, who wrote the Atlantic takedown of Chris Licht at CNN.
Oh.
And what I didn't realize is that he is the son of a minister and is actually a profoundly religious man. And he's written this book about the way that American evangelists have embraced radical right-wing nationalism and especially Trump. And he finds this, as a devout Christian, profoundly disturbing. And it's a bit of, it's a bit of a downer. It's like, why do you want to read a book like that? But I wanted to read it because I really want to know why or how this has happened. I just do not understand how you can be a devout Christian and then think that your leader is this, all those things. I don't want to go off on a Trump rant, but it just makes no sense to me. Why has the church grown so paranoid, defensive, and apocalyptic? And, thinking that, the government's out, weaponizing the IRS to attack churches, and, closing COVID was a conspiracy, and making the churches close down was sort of Satanism, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's interesting about this book is he really goes and talks to everybody. He talks to all the ministers all across the country, and it's great, but he chronicles it perfectly, but I still don't know why. It still doesn't explain it. Now, James, you were shaking your head like, of course you know why. Why?
No. I think I was agreeing because, I have a sister who's an evangelical. I'm estranged from, that I don't speak to anymore. And my brother, before he passed away, was very. He would be a Trumper, and he was a doomsday prepper, and I cannot for the life of me understand. I have a cousin who is very in with Trump. I just don't understand how these people, what it is. I don't understand what happened.
I think you're either this. It's hard to reduce it. I'm going to sound stupid trying to, but you either kind of have some kind of optimism and hope and faith in the world and goodness, or you are you're full of fear. Now we're all really a little bit of both, right? But there's something where it separates, and the world's against you, and it's them, and you point outside, and there's no empathy, and it's and it's very primal, and it's very animal, and it's very in an apocalyptic movie when everything goes off the kilter, there goes society. And religion has always been not spirituality, not the spiritual message, not Jesus's message and others, but I was raised with Jesus. They're beautiful messages of turn the other cheek and peace and love and understanding and whatever you do to the least of my brother that you're doing to me. But churches have been used to manipulate beyond repair, compare forever.
And always, I suppose, this fear of some sort of evil that's coming for you or that is afoot, used to manipulate you into. Yeah.
And heaven and hell is such a creepy.
Well, there you go. Right.
Idea right there. It's like you're going to burn hell. You're going to burn
and
hell.
How Trump factors into all of that is just That's the how I understand the fear of heaven and hell and the evangelicals and the wanting to be good, but how they seem to think that Trump is their savior. It's the golden calf all over again. I just don't
It
understand.
is. I mean, he kind of concludes that, you know, the problem here is idolatry, and that, you know, in that what I guess used to be the separation of church and state, it's just like, well, these Christians believe they should run the state, and that they've become political animals, and that they worship a
of the house.
idol. But it's an interesting thing. The subtitle of the book is American Evangelicals in an Age of Extremism. And all I would say is American evangelism is the extremism. That's like, it's not that they're just sort of floating around in this age of extremism. They've sort of become...
They've harnessed it. They've harnessed it and weaponized it.
But it was a really interesting book because also he is himself devout, which I honestly find a little baffling and perplexing. You know, he says that, you know, the Lord has blessed his work. And I'm like, I mean, you know, each to their own, but I'm like,
whenever God talks to you, be careful.
It's that weird thing, you know. I've been watching The View a lot, and Alyssa Farah Griffith is somebody who fascinates me on the show because she's a Republican who's anti-Trump, and she says, you know, that she will never vote for Trump, but she won't vote for Biden. She's just going to sit out the election because and it's like, you see, she worked for Trump and she sees how horrible he is, but yet she won't change her affiliation from the Republicans. It's mind boggling that you can. I just don't understand. I don't understand so many people in the world anymore.
And I certainly don't mean to go on about it, but I'm with you too. I just kind of don't understand it. Like, Tom, I understand some people getting radicalized, but the sort of infection or epidemic of it is just, I don't know.
They cannot see it no matter how.
But we get to throw at them and they get to throw at us. And
all right.
You know, it's like, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. I don't know. It's this bad, like, Yankees Red Sox game that won't end.
'Tis the season, spreading Christmas joy. Let's take one more break. And when we come back, the number one thing this week that made us go,
wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake. This is our last topical show of the year. We've been counting down the top 10 things of the week that make us go
wow.
And we've reached number one.
Number one.
Our Christmas present to you. Wow Presents Plus, Christmas present to you. Christmas Eve. All the episodes of that Christmas classic, Thunderbirds. James, did you ever watch Thunderbirds?
Yes, it was the puppets, right?
The classic 1960s sci-fi puppet series with the International Rescue Team. Really, the ground zero of superhero-y type, animatronic-y type, puppet type stuff. And Campus Christmas, James. Lady Penelope is a sort of amazing Barbie figure, but super posh, rides around in a fabulous pink Rolls Royce with a completely perspex dome and a license plate Fab 1. I mean, and she has a butler called Parker who always goes, "Yes, milady." And I just love it. Lady Penelope is kind of like imagine Kylie Minogue at 75 or something.
Well, wait. It's available for viewing. What is
yes, Christmas Eve. We're dropping all 32 episodes on Wow Presents Plus of the.
Wait, how did that happen?
We licensed them, James.
How did you license them? That's incredible. That's crazy.
I know. It's a camp classic. It really needs to be seen, and it feels like it just belongs on Wow Presents Plus. 'Twill be the night before Christmas. And all over the house, no one was stirring, not even a mouse, except a Thunderbird.
Awesome.
Well, that's it.
That's just crazy.
Are you excited?
I'm so excited. That's amazing news.
Okay, good. Well, it's our present to you, though.
In lieu of a bonus this year, you get to watch something on Wow Presents Plus.
Something on Wow Presents Plus that's like 60 years old. But oh, it's like you, James. So
isn't that funny?
Oh, well, we should wish everybody a happy holidays. And Thank you so much for listening. And same time, same place next week.
No, next year. We won't see each other.
Same time, same place next year. Until then, go out and have a holidays that make the world go
wow.